Welcome everyone to the February 8th, 2023 meeting of the Baltimore County Design Review Panel. This meeting is officially called to order. I am the acting chair, Joseph Usafero. We will start with a roll call to account for the members of the panel that are present on the call. When you hear your name, please say aye. Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Sharma? Mr. Sharma, are you here? I see your name, Mr. Sharma, but perhaps you're muted. Mr. Sharma, are you there? All right, let's move on. Ms. Sauce?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Present.
And again, I am Mr. Usafero. Let's come back to Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, are you here and present? Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Marta, are there any changes to the agenda as published for this evening?
No, there are no changes, Joe. Thank you for asking.
Great. My fellow panel members, in the January 20th, 2023 email, you received draft meeting minutes of the January 11th, 2023 DRP meeting. I hope everyone has had the opportunity to review the draft minutes that were sent out. My question to you as panelists, are there any corrections or additions to the minutes of the January 11th, 2023 DRP meeting? Hearing none, who would like to make a motion to accept the minutes as circulated?
This is Donald Can. I'd make the motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Can. Do I have a second?
I second. James.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. All in favor, if you could say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, and the motion carries. So I'm going to read an opening statement prior to the presenter being called up as it relates to the design review panel and the regulations. So this will take a couple minutes. If you could sit back and enjoy, I'm going to go ahead and read this now. Title 4, Subtitle 2, Part 1, Sections 32-4-203 and 204 establish the Design Review Panel with the acronyms DRP. The DRP was established to encourage design excellence and shall act in a consulting and advisory capacity to the agencies involved in the process for reviewing development plans.
I can't hear, Joseph.
Oh, you can't hear. Marta and my fellow panelists, can anybody else hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think Raj may have to log in, log back out. Maybe that'll work for him.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you clearly.
Okay.
I can hear now.
Okay, you can hear now, Mr. Sharma?
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'm going to keep going here. The objectives for the DRP's assessment include spatial, visual, and functional relationship to the topographical characteristics, the natural and built features of the site, as well as the surrounding features of the site, visual and functional integration of streetscapes, pedestrian pathways, playgrounds, recreational amenities, and parks. Streets and sidewalks are laid out in a safe and convenient manner, and parking is a positive design element. Building, parking garages, and other structures are spatially and visually integrated and suitable to their surroundings in proportion, massing, and type of materials and colors, signage, and other elements of the urban design. And plant materials are selected and cited to define the site, provide a theme, frame of view, enhance architecture and street character, improve microclimate, provide transition between dissimilar uses, screen objectionable views and uses, and reduce noise levels and glare. In carrying out its duties, the DRP utilizes the guidelines, plans, and architectural principles in the Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies, and/or Master Plan, as well as other guidelines and regulations adopted into law. Certain areas of the county were designated by the County Council to require review by the DRP. The panel will provide a technical review of the proposed project. Issues relative to zoning, setback relief, environmental and stormwater management, and traffic regulations do not fall under the purview of the DRP and are regulated through the appropriate agencies responsible for those aspects of the development plan review process. The panel consists of 9 members. All are professionals with practical knowledge in the matters of design. For purposes of making recommendations on a particular project, 3 members shall constitute a quorum. The attendance and comments of each member shall be recorded in the minutes, which shall be an open record and available, along with all documents submitted to the panel for inspection and copying by the public. There will be an opportunity for the community to offer comments and suggestions at the conclusion of the applicant's presentation. These comments will also be included in the written record of the meeting. When a speaker is called up to speak, please keep your comments focused on design perspectives within your allotted 2 minutes of time. If you are speaking on behalf of a community group, you will get 5 minutes. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Department of Planning will sum up the recommendations of the panel before a motion for a vote is suggested. Recent legislation has changed the panel's recommendations to be advisory on the hearing officer and the various county agencies, unless the hearing officer or agencies find the panel's actions constitute an abuse of its discretion or are unsupported by the documentation and evidence presented. Disposition of the plan will be determined as either approved with conditions, or additional review with a second meeting required. So thank you for allowing me to read the rules and regulations. We are ready to proceed to the first item on the agenda, which is 808 Reisterstown Road in the Pikesville Commercial Review area. Presenter, you may present your project now, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Donnie Inquiry. I'm with Donnie Inquiry Architects. Thanks for having me on the agenda today. So I'll walk you through our project. I'll start off by saying that as an architect, I'm excited that this project is within the Pikesville design guidelines, because it allows any renovations or new developments to kind of follow a set of guidelines. Therefore, there's a really nice character to the neighborhood. So I appreciate that. Joe, Joe, you have control of the screen, correct? Who has control of the screen?
Yeah, that would be Marta, who
Yes.
you could direct to.
So Marta, I guess I'll just say next when you want to click to the next slide.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wait, hold on 1 second. So this project, where my wife and I are under contract to purchase the property from the current sellers. My wife has a clothing store called the Mimi Boutique. She sells fashionable women's clothing. She's currently renting space at Sudbrook Square next door to Apollo Board Cleaners. I have a small architecture practice based in Pikesville. We do a lot of commercial residential work. Our vision for the property is to build a beautiful 2-story building where my wife can move her retail store. I could have an office there, and then there'll be a spot for a second office tenant. Next. So this slide shows our property in the small green circle. We're in the BL zone, right on Reisterstown Road. We're probably about a block south of the Pikes Theater. Next. Here's the photo of the existing lot. The house-looking building you see ahead of you has a hair salon and some office space. Our project proposes to demolish the existing structure and to build a new 2-story building that follows the design of the Pikesville Design Guidelines. There's an existing parking lot in the rear that you access off of Hawthorne Avenue, and that parking lot we're planning to keep. Next. Here are the front views of the subject property in the center, and then the neighboring property to the left at 806 Reisterstown Road, which is a produce market on the lower floor with spaces on the second floor. And then across the street from Hawthorne, 900 Reisterstown Road, is the law offices of Mark Epstein. Next. Here's some photos from the surrounding neighborhood that shows the character of the neighborhood. I grew up in Pikesville, so all my life I'm driving up and down the street, so a lot of these projects are very familiar to me. You'll see on the top right the most well-known building in this area, Pikes Theater. You see some other newer development projects that have been built probably in the past 15 years. Next. I just zoom in on the Pikes Theater again because I want the panel just to take a look at a lot of the material colors of this building. We use this as inspiration for the exterior of our building. Therefore, though our building may not have the same Art Deco style of this project, we took inspiration from the color palette. Therefore, we can have a theme that continues down the block. Next. So here's an aerial view of the existing site plan. Our subject property is in the center at 808. You'll see that existing building with the parking lot in the rear. The neighboring building to the left is 806, and then there's Hawthorne Avenue to the right of us. Next. Here's our proposed site plan, where you could see in a light line the existing building that is planned to be demolished, and then a new 2-story building that comes closer up to Reisterstown Road. And by doing that, we're continuing the character of the intent of the design guidelines by bringing buildings closer to the street, so we have a main street environment. There's an existing parking lot in the back that we're restriping. We're going to have 17 spaces there. We're also proposing to maintain the existing grass area between the property line and the street. We're also proposing for 4 new trees to help shield the parking space. Next. So when I originally submitted this project, this was the design that we had submitted. It was a 2-story building, brick, with a similar color palette as Pikes Theater. About a week ago, as I was putting more thought into the design, my wife and I, we had a slight revision to the design. My thoughts on when we, after we submitted this was the main entrance of the retail store lacked hierarchy. So if you click next, Marta. So this is our adjusted design, same overall ideas before, but we've shifted the entrance of the retail store to be centered in the building. We've also created some more hierarchy to the front entrance to establish it, to make it a well-known entrance, which is similar to a lot of the other buildings in the neighborhood, even similar to next door. Click next, please. So for our material palette, similar to the color palette of Pike's Theater, we're looking to use a fully brick building with a tan color brick, and then then we have a dark gray brick as accent. I know this is over the previous design, but the material palette is still the same. We have black metal awnings over the entrances and windows. We have black metal light fixtures, signage that is going to be internally illuminated. We have, and there's a lot of, it may be hard to tell from the photo, but we're planning to do a lot of really nice brick detailing. Soldier courses, wainscoting at the bottom for like a water table edge, bulkheads below the brick bulkheads below the storefronts. So a lot of really nice detailing to make this a more modern design building, but to still take cues from the historic character of the Pikesville neighborhood. Next. Here's an elevation view of the facade with adjacent, with the proposed building adjacent to the neighboring building at 806. Next. So, scale is a really important thing in architecture. And one thing that we noticed in the design guidelines is that, we want to have some variation in height. So even though our building is a little bit taller than the next door building, you'll see the dash line going across, which is that dash line represents the height of the neighboring building, and we used that datum line to create the top of the piers in our building. So we're taking the scale of the neighboring building to influence the design of the new building. Next. And now with this new design, with our new entrance door center in the building, it's more similar to the main entrance to the neighboring building where the door is centered on the facade. Next. Within our proposed facade, there's some subtle variations. One thing that was important to create a proportional and balanced design was to have a facade rhythm. So you'll see that we have these bays that I call with the letter A, that is a similar width as our entrance. So therefore, even though it's not a repetitive design, but there's some subtle variation in the facade that allows it to, just all the elements to connect together. Next. Here are some floor plans of the proposed building. The floor plan on the right is the ground level plan. You'll see the what I call Suite A is the retail store for my wife. There's entrances on Reisterstown Road, which is at the bottom of your screen, and entrances from the top, which is the parking lot. You'll see there's a large open space, lots of glass for good visibility into the store. And then there's an entrance on the right side of the screen, which is off of Hawthorne Avenue. That takes you into the lower lobby that leads you to the two office tenants on the second floor. Suite B would be an office for my architectural practice, and then Suite C would be another office tenant. Next. Here are some elevations from our computer file. This design that you see is from the originally submitted one, so it hasn't been adjusted with the centered facade, but just to kind of show you the level of detail that we're at with the drawings. And you'll also see in the top left a building section cut through the building where you see the ceiling heights and the floor to the floor relationships. Next. And just to conclude our rendering once again, we worked very hard to design a beautiful building that follows the spirit of the design guidelines and takes cues from the neighboring buildings. And we're excited to hear the panel's feedback to do whatever we can to make the project as successful as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ankery, for that presentation. At this time, the floor will be open for public input and/or feedback from the community. So as a reminder, if you are representing a community group, you will have 5 minutes to speak. Those who do not represent a community group will have 2 minutes to speak. Marta, Are there any speakers from the public for this project who have signed up and wish to speak?
Yes, we have 3 speakers who wish to speak, and let me unmute first speaker. Mr. Bargering, is Tim Yusufov
Yeah, my client is with me.
with you? Okay, perfect. So, so the first speaker has 2 minutes to speak. Please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours. I'm sorry, I think I muted. Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Mr.
hear you. Can you hear
Yes,
us?
sorry, I accidentally muted you, so now you can speak. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
So, my name is Tim Yusufov, and I own 806 Reisterstown Road, and I own the produce store on the first floor of the building. So I object of the design for this new building because it connects to my building, and I have about 7 windows that will be blocked off, and there will be no light. I have tenants in there that currently renting, and there would be no light in the air. So I needed the building to be off at least. Right now, it's probably at least 40 feet away from my building. So if the building can be 20 feet away, at least, so the light in the air would come through, and the building is much taller than our building, so it changes the whole design of the community, I guess, of this proposed design. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker will be Mr. Bruce Doke. Doke, sorry. I just unmuted you, Mr. Doke. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can. My name is Bruce Doke. I am a licensed surveyor, and I have been doing zoning and working with the DRP since DRP started, and was zoning for 37 years in this county. I am here this evening representing the ownership of 806 Reisterstown Road, and I just want to point out a few things. I think the petitioner put on a fine case. He has done his homework, and in turn has great merit with what he's doing. I lived right down the street from this. I too know Pikesville well. I lived there for 7 years, and love the diversity of Pikesville more than anything. And that diversity comes with businesses being in different types of buildings and being different types of businesses. And I think that 808 and 900 are great examples of how somebody has reutilized an existing a building that was once a dwelling, and it kind of adds to the diversity of Pikesville, which most people really like. They don't want it to be one solid storefront down along Pikes or Reisterstown Road. So I think that it has merit in what he's proposing to do. But on the other hand, like the owner of 806 just testified, it will have negative impact to his building and the use of that. So the first one I have is, if you could go back, Marta, please, where you were. If you'll keep one more, please. I have one that shows an arrow. There you go. It's hard to see, but everybody that knows Pikesville will see that you can see that the buildings are of unique size, shape, distance from one another, and that's what makes it really special down through Pikesville. The next one, if I could see that, please, it's an aerial photo of the subject property. And you'll see.
I'm sorry, you just have about 30 seconds left.
Okay. Well, if you could move through the a couple drawings, I'd like to show you the in between the buildings, please. The other direction, please. Keep going. Keep going. Couple more, please. Couple more. Right, there's one. Okay, so back, please. Back, please. One. So there's what we have now. That's the way that these buildings are and should be kept in somewhat the same distance apart. That way that 806 doesn't use the use
And
of that second floor.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Marta, are there any other presenters
Yes,
from the public?
yes. We have we have Mr. Borgering. Mr. Borgering, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, board. My name is Francis X. Borgering Jr. I'm an attorney and I represent the owner of 806 Reisterstown Road. I call your attention to 3224-203-C-4 of the Baltimore County Code, which says that you should approve projects which are spatially and visually integrated into its surroundings. I don't believe the plan as proposed is spatially or visually integrated into its surroundings, in that in the immediate area, the buildings are not connected, and he's proposing to connect the buildings. Additionally, the building is higher than my client's building, which means that it's obviously going to block it. I'd also call your attention to 32-4-203-2, small 2, where it says, in addition to, or the panel may increase residential setbacks requirements for the proposed development. So here you have the authority pursuant to this section to increase the residential setbacks between my client's building and the proposed building. There is no setback, but you have the ability of authority to increase that setback. And I would ask you to increase that to 20 feet to allow light and air to continue to flow to my client's building. I mean, basically, the bottom line is, if you look at the size of what's being...
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Marta, are there any other folks from the community that wish to speak?
Let me check the chat window. And Brad, do we have anyone else? Or Jen, do we have anyone else?
No, not that I see.
Yeah, I have no one in the chat.
So I have Mark Epstein. He would like to speak. Let me find him at the attendee list. Mr. Epstein, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Can I begin?
Yes, and you have 2 minutes also.
Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to say, so first of all, I'm the owner of the building across the street on the same side of Reisterstown Road. So Hawthorne is between my building and 808 Reisterstown Road. I have a law office there for over 20 years. So Mr. Ankry, I've given him a letter because I support his building. He has been very transparent and has made a lot of effort to show me what he can do to appease concerns. The two main concerns I just want to bring to your attention, which I will be speaking at the next hearing, is number one, the entryway from Hawthorne Road onto Reisterstown Road is not good. It's not unusual for existing traffic. If you go to the end of Hawthorne and you're waiting to make a turn, if there's traffic trying to turn onto Hawthorne at the same time from Reisterstown Road, there's usually not enough room, and you may have to actually back your car up from the stop sign to let the other car in, because Hawthorne is relatively narrow. Donnie has indicated that he is willing to try to apply to the county to get the apron at the intersection widened, similar to other intersections that have been done in the Smith Avenue area. And I think that would be fabulous. If that could be done, it would solve a lot of everything. Because the sight line when you're at the stop sign on Hawthorne is not easy to see oncoming traffic from the right. But I do believe that what he's trying to do will help. The only other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that he has committed to renting extra parking spaces for the parking variance application from the Sherwood parking area, the public parking area, in order to alleviate on-street metered parking being taken by clients of 808. I have relied on those parking spaces for many years because my parking lot's not.
Excuse me, your time is up.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, Marta, do you have anybody else who wishes to speak?
Let me check very quickly. No, I don't have anyone else with this.
Okay. Marta and Department of Planning, I do have a question. I did see an email that was sent over at some point today. Would you like to read that, Marta?
We typically don't read emails. That's why we shared with you prior the meeting. Just if you would like to ask if everyone from the panel member has opportunity to read the email.
Excellent, sure. So I'll ask my fellow panelists, has everybody had an opportunity to read the email that Marta has sent out today, mid-afternoon?
And the email was from Mr. Melvin Mintz.
I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. So I think that does it for the public comment. Marta, let's go ahead and proceed to the Department of Planning staff report. Go ahead and read that if you don't mind.
Thank you, Joe. So Department of Planning prepared staff report based on comprehensive manual of development policies, Pikesville Commercial Revitalization Guidelines, Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan, and Baltimore County Landscape Manual. So in regards to site design, staff recommends approval of the site design. For the form and image, staff recommends approval for the form and image. In regards to open space and landscape design, staff recommends approval of open space and landscape design subject to the following conditions. Provide a detailed landscape plan with a list of all proposed plants. Consider native and adaptive plants. Provide additional screening along Hawthorne Avenue based on the Pikesville Commercial Revitalization Guidelines, page 5. When parking lots are located adjacent to a road, a minimum 10 feet wide landscaping buffer between the sidewalk and parking lot pavement is to be provided. The buffer must contain shrubbery of at least 42 inches high and or a garden wall or fence of the same height. These elements are to be provided to screen the parking lots that is located along Hawthorne Avenue. Number 3, provide an outdoor seating area for employees. Number 4, provide bike racks and label them on the site plan. Number 5, provide landscape screening and enclosure details for the proposed dumpster. The enclosure should match the principal structure in proposed materials. All requirements of condition H of the Baltimore County Landscape Manual are to be met. In regards to streets, parking, and circulation, staff recommends approval of streets, parking, and circulation subject to the following conditions. Number 1, provide a number of parking spaces required for the proposed development. Number 2, the sidewalk along the entire property length must meet ADA requirements. Show and label on the site plan how the ADA requirements are met. Number 3, provide materials for the new proposed sidewalk. In regards to signage and lighting, staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, provide additional signage details indicating size, dimensions, and illumination. All signage must meet county requirements of Section 450 of the BCZR. Number 2, indicate all proposed lighting fixtures on the plan and provide details. Lighting fixtures adjacent to residential areas should be designed and placed so as to prevent the spillage of light into any adjoining dwelling or lot. And in regards to architectural design, staff recommends approval of the architectural design. And this concludes the staff report. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you very much, Marta, for that staff report. At this point, we're going to go ahead and discuss the project on the panel. I would ask that my fellow panelists, if you have the capability to turn your cameras on as you make your comment. Thank you. So we'll start with Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan, if you can hear us, unmute, and it's your turn.
Yes, I have a basic question to understand. Apparently, the project will require some not insignificant variances. Is there a current status of any of that? The point being that the side yard variance, in particularly against the adjacent building, that if that's granted, that's we can look at this building and critique it. If it's not granted, it's a very different project. And I would like to know what the status of that is.
This is Jennifer Donald from the Planning Department. I can answer that, and Mr. Ankry can chime in as well. But we have been in consultation with the zoning office to double check to assure that the current zoning does allow for the buildings to be directly adjacent to one another, so long as they meet the building code requirements. So the zoning class does allow for the buildings to be right up against each other. So there is no side yard variance for that side of the building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. There are other variances that are going to be requested for this project. And so there will be a zoning hearing. This panel does not adjudicate over those requests. However, the design as presented and based on how you all would render your recommendation could influence those variance requests.
Right. I was primarily concerned about the side yard. I know there are other variances with the parking, et cetera. That's different than the building question. So I guess I have a couple thoughts. One is that the plans that you showed us don't match the revised elevations. Since there's it follows your original design, but not the revised elevations. I would think we'd want to have those made current as part of the entire project. if you want to look at it. And then I really don't understand the particular value of having this building in front of the other building, particularly if there are questions at the intersection as well, right? Plans don't match that, that you provided. And I would think that at least holding the building back in the same plane as the existing building would be more appropriate. And then I'd certainly concur with the comments of the that have been written off by the staff. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khan. Let's move to Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, if you could unmute and turn your camera on, it's your turn.
All right. Well, the camera is on, but okay, I guess enough light to show the yellow. Okay, good evening, everyone. So one thing I concur with the comments from the staff report. The other thing what I noticed here, that the rendition may not exactly reflect the actual colors, but what I see that the name of boutique is not enough contrasty to not easily readable. It could be the same color like a wall or something different that has a little better contrast. That's one thing. The other thing, staff report has already mentioned about the ADA compliance, so I'll just leave it there. Other than that, I don't have any comment. I don't want to repeat the comments that already been made.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you.
Let's proceed to Ms. Sauce. Ms. Sauce, if you can hear us, unmute and turn your camera on. It's your turn.
Okay, everything's working. That's a good thing. I concur with a lot of the comments of the fellow board members and of the staff report. I think done a great job thinking about the architecture and the design. So thank you for that. Are there any current lights in the back parking lot? I don't see any, and I have the security concerns about that, just not creating some dark spaces. So agreeing with the staff report, need to see light fixtures back there, and specifically about screening the parking lot from the street as per the staff report. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sauce. And I think we will round out the panel outside of my own comments with Mr. Stevens. Mr. Stevens, if you could unmute and turn the camera on, it's your turn. Mr. Stevens, can you hear us?
So sorry about that. Let me start. And I guess just look, my first concern when I saw this project was the design abutting the existing buildings and blocking out the windows. It's very unfortunate from my perspective that the side yard variance is approved, but I just want to go on record that it just seems like, just to be neighborly and to really work this out in some fashion, to have some type of separation there between the buildings. So I will leave that as my comment. Outside of that, I mean, I agree with the staff report. The composition and the palette of the colors on the building, I have no problems with. I would say, in agreeing with Donald Khan, I'm not in agreement with that 2-foot bump out the front facade from the existing building on the left, that really should align and be on the same plane. So, you know, outside of that, I have another recommendation. I wholeheartedly agree with your new design. I'm glad that you did take the time to restudy the building, because I do like the new design versus the original. But I would make the recommendation that at the entry, where you have the gray brick on either side of the entry, that would become the tan brick. That way, you know, you would not keep that entry as heavy, and it would become more of a focal point. Just maintaining that tan brick on either side of the front entry. So, you know, that from a design perspective and keeping the focal on the entry, that would be my suggestion on that front facade entry. You know, outside of that, I'm in agreement with the rest of the panelists and the staff report. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevens.
You're welcome.
I'll go ahead and not repeat anything. I think my fellow panelists, as well as the staff report, summed up some of my comments. So I don't have anything further at this point. What I'd like to do now is, between the panelists, is there any other further discussion that we need to have before moving to a motion? And I'll just remind everybody that the motion could be one of three things. It could be approved. It could be approved with conditions, or it could be additional review is needed with a second meeting is to be required. I think I heard the most comments from Mr. Stevens and Mr. Khan from an architectural standpoint. So I would ask either Mr. Stevens or Mr. Khan to, if there's no further discussion, to make a motion.
So may I make one more comment, please?
Please, Mr. Sharma. Sure, this is the discussion
Can
part.
we go to the plan view of this property? If you see here, 808 is a little protruding along the line of 806. I don't know what would be the reason. It doesn't look good.
I think, Mr. Sharma, what you're referring to is along Reisterstown Road, and are you referring to the two foot bump out?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a little bit, you know,
Yeah, I
in line
think,
with the other.
yeah, I think I heard Mr. Khan as well as Mr. Stevens have a comment that they'd like to see the buildings in line with each other. And I think that's what you're saying as well.
Yes, my apology. I must have missed the comment. Yes.
No problem.
Thank
you. So would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion then that I guess I would ask the other commissioners. There are a number of issues raised by the staff beyond our comments about the front setback. And I guess one concern is that my preference anyway would be that we have a chance to review this when all of those comments are properly addressed. There are a lot of issues with the planting, with the dumpster, with the lighting, and we don't have enough information on some of that to really finally approve it. But I would make a motion that we ask the applicant to return with a completed, updated package of information so we can do a full review. And I would add to that, we support the recommendations that have been made by the staff and the comments by other commissioners, including looking at the front setback and some of the issues that were raised by Mr. Stevens in terms of the detail of the brick banding along Reisterstown Road.
So, Mr. Hahn, can I just ask a question? You're making a motion to have the project come back for a full panel review, having addressed the staff report. Is that your motion?
That's my motion, because there are just so many things that aren't shown that need to be shown really to give it a full approval. And typically, we've seen more detail on the site, particularly in and lighting and all the rest, which we don't have the information on really at this point.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to return for a second meeting. My preference as a discussion topic would be to have the applicant push the 808 building in line with 806, but also work with the Department of Planning and administratively following this meeting. But certainly up for discussion and a second. So the motion on the table is return for a second meeting. Do I have a second?
I second.
Well, wait, so wait a second. We're not following Robert's rules here. Mr. Khan made a motion and that has to be voted on. And now you're making a new motion.
Yeah, Jennifer, I didn't make a motion. I just wanted to discuss some things. So there's a motion on the table to return for a second meeting.
I'm also, I just have to address this because we're not in person meeting right now. Mr. Ankri is asking for an opportunity to speak before you all make a vote. If we were in person, he'd likely, be gesticulating that he'd like to speak. So I'm just pointing that out to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I do think it's appropriate to allow Mr. Ankri to speak.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I'm like just itching to want to just jump in and say something, but I'm respectfully just kind of waiting my turn. So I'm going to just kind of focus just my responses on purely the panelist comments. First off, all the comments were very helpful. I want to say that the most reoccurring comment was this 2-foot bump out, and when this was submitted, it was submitted with a 0-foot front setback variance. So for the purposes of just the variance request, we showed the building right up on the property line. However, after reviewing the Pikesville design guidelines, there's a section that says that just to summarize, that they want that, if you're adjacent to a building, they don't want any blank facades coming out, sticking out. For uniformity, the Pikesville design guidelines requires that the new building is aligned with adjacent projects. So I've already, I can tell you right now that we will be aligning the building. So the 2-foot bump out that you see is not going to happen. It will be aligned with it. So we'll be pulling back the building approximately 2 feet. That doesn't affect the design of the exterior. but I can assure you that will be taking place. Regarding any other comments, besides for the 2-foot bump out, there was a comment from Mr. Khan about updating the elevations. What was shown was from our computer CAD file, but the exterior 3D rendering that's been shown, that same character is going to be continuing around. If you actually go to the proposed rendering, you'll see you can see from this angle the elevation from the right side along Hawthorne Avenue where we're continuing the piers. And then on the rear side, which you don't see because is going to have the same design as the entrance that you see over here from the one that has with the logo, the pink logo. That's going to be replicated on the back side. So because that's also a main entrance. So what you see here, that same character is going to wrap around. Regarding Mr. Sharma's comment about the logo not popping, what you see here is me putting some pink letters in there. My intention is to take my wife's logo, which is a very stylish logo, and and have it there. So the rendering may not do it justice for what it's going to look like in reality, but I could assure you that there's going to be some nice contrast between the logo color, which I'm planning to have like a pink color, and the dark gray brick. So Miss Sauce's comment, the only comment I wrote down was we would like some lighting in the back parking lot, which I 100% agree with. There's currently no, the parking lot's existing. There's currently no street, the existing lighting is wall mounted lights on the building. So similar to what you see here in the rendering where you have light fixtures mounted to the front, our intention is to do the same thing on the back to light the back parking lot, but obviously make sure that the parking lot, the lighting does not, shine into the neighbor houses. Regarding Mr. Stevens' comments, the blocking of the windows of 806, to me, I reached out to the neighbor, but I feel like, his concerns, I feel it would be more appropriate to discuss at the variance hearing. And then Mr. Stevens' last comment was to add some tan brick around the entry, which I agree with. I think that would have a nice little pop to the entrance. And Mr. Yusufara, you do not have additional comments other than the 2-foot. So I'm happy to make these adjustments. The 2-foot front's already been taken into account. I don't think, adding the tan around the entrance is necessarily warrants a whole nother review. I'm happy to do that. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ankery, for addressing some of those. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my panelists. There's a motion on the table made by Mr. Khan.
I just have a comment, I guess. So, are we saying? Is it being said that during this zoning hearing that there may be some adjustments between the existing building and the new building as far as a separation? So that the existing building with the windows would still be able to use that space? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
I could chime in, Mr. Stevens, and say that the applicant is required to go to a hearing before the administrative law judge. The judge may impose conditions as it relates to setbacks. It's tough to tell at this point.
Yeah, I guess I only say that is that may warrant the applicant to come back for us to really take a look at the new design. That's all.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Okay, so Mr. Khan made a motion. Mr. Khan, are you still, with Mr. Ankery's responses, inclined to make the same motion?
And motion, well, yes, because I mean, this isn't an open negotiation typically, but it was made and Mr. Stevens seconded it, so we have to follow, either it gets voted up or it gets voted down. I would keep the motion.
The motion on the table is made by Mr. Khan, seconded by Mr. Stevens. All in favor?
I think because you have so many, let's do a roll call vote, if you could.
Yep.
Thank you.
Joe, I'm sorry. I received a message from Mr. Francis Bordering. He would like to make a comment as well. I'm just delivering the message.
I'm sorry, Marta. You cut out. You received a message from who?
Mr. Francis Bordering. He is representing his client. I just delivering that message to you that he wants to make a comment as well.
We had the public comment period, and we closed it. So we're on the motion now. So I'm inclined to not have that comment.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to go to the roll call. Mr. Sharma,
Aye.
Ms. Sauce,
Aye.
Mr. Stevens,
Aye.
Mr. Khan made the motion.
Aye.
And I am I'm not in support of it. I'm against the motion, but that's 4-1 and motion carries. Okay. So it was voted on that the applicant is additional review with a second meeting required. So that concludes the design review panel meeting for this evening. May I have a motion to officially adjourn the meeting by one of my fellow panel members?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. And all in favor of say aye.
Aye.
I heard ayes from everybody as well as myself. The motion carries, and we will adjourn the meeting at 7:04 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.